Hi ICT 10. This is going to be our Alice introductory tutorial. I apologize for sounding sick. Hopefully you can still understand me. But if you could please click on your Alice software that you should have downloaded to your desktop. It's going to take a minute or two to load. And when you open this up, you're going to find that there are a lot of similarities between this and Scratch. It's just more intricate and detailed. So first we see things that look similar to stages. You're going to pick one of these blank slates. I'm going to pick the grass one to start. You can pick any one you like. And then we're going to see two different views. So this is the coding view where you can, again, it looks similar that we have some visual blocks that we can drop. It's just going to get a little bit more detailed. But let's start in the setup scene viewer. And again, everything takes a minute to load. And I'd like to introduce you to the interface of Alice. So this first bit here is panel 1. Panel 1 is the camera view and gives you your perspective as well as your object's perspective. Down here, panel 2 is your gallery. This is where you can choose your different classes, and they're really nice and easily sorted by theme, by groups, by hierarchies, and you can also search for something in particular, or you can even later on make your own different types of objects using basic geometric shapes. So this is panel 2, the gallery, and then up here is panel 3. This is your properties. This is where you can change objects, size, color, movements, and so forth. So let's start with choosing, let's say, the slither classes. And I'm going to choose the long neck snail, put him right here, hit OK, and I will put Nudgy here and hit OK. So here are two objects now I've just added from slither classes. I can select these manipulable objects by either clicking on the left here, or I can select them from this drop-down menu in our panel 3 properties screen here. Okay, the first thing we want to get comfortable with is our camera views. So this is the starting camera view, and this is probably the one that you will most likely use the most often, but you can also use top-down or bird's eye view. You can look at a side view, and you can look at the front view. But we're going to start on the starting view. Now, I have a mouse plugged in. I personally find mice really easy to use with computers, especially when you're zooming in and zooming out and orbiting and panning. So when I use my track on my roller here, I can move in, I can move out, I can tilt. It's pretty easy and intuitive for me. I'm going to unplug my mouse now, and you can do the same thing with the hotkeys and the trackpad. So what I'm doing right now is I'm pushing down on the trackpad with my index finger, and then just using my middle finger, other finger, I can just what we call pan left to right. If I use both fingers, I can go up, I can go down. Okay, so two fingers on the trackpad at one time. And if I hold down the command key with my left index finger, and then with my other hand click down on the trackpad, this is another way that I can move and roll around on the screen. So I would encourage you to spend some time and get comfortable with what works for you. I'm going to plug my mouse back in here. Now, when you want to get really close and really fine detailed movements, those big gross movements might not work. So that's when these keys will really come in handy. So you can go up, you can go down, you can go left, right, you can look left, look right, or bank left, bank right, and tilt up and tilt down. So get comfortable with using either your mouse or your trackpad, because once you're comfortable with changing your views, it's going to make your work in Alice a lot easier. Okay, so let's now practice manipulating our objects. So I'm going to click Nudgy here. So up in my properties panel here, I can rotate her. Okay, so I can rotate her that way to her left or her right. Let's get her back to the front. I can rotate her forwards and backwards. Okay, and I can also rotate her side to side. So you'll notice that there's 3 degrees, X, Y, and Z, or what we call the 6 degrees of freedom. The colors don't always match, so in some other programs you might have used, white might have referred to forwards and backwards, and red might have referred to left and right, and green might have referred to up and down. Depending on the different manipulations that you're doing, the colors do change, I've noticed. So just instead of referring to them as X, Y, and Z axes, although we can, and we can manipulate them here, it might just be easier to say forwards, backwards, side to side, left to right. You can also then move your object, okay? Again, this is for big gross motor movements, but let's say I wanted to get Najee really close to that long neck snail. Here in my property panel, I can use something called Snap. Snap's going to provide grid marks on my blank space here, my grass space. And so now I can move her. It can be a lot more specific, and I can snap her right to intersecting lines. So if I wanted her to be, for example, right here, I just simply move her and it will snap me when I get close. There, I've snapped right on that line, and I know that she's exactly in the position that I wanted. So that's one way you can move that way. That's just to position your object, but let's say you wanted, or actually, I'll hold on that thought for a minute. I'll go to resize as well and just show you that you can also resize. Pretty straightforward here. But let's go back to Najee. Okay, so let's say I wanted to actually have her move on her own, so not me manipulating her movements. What I can do is I can click on Najee, and I can go here, and I can, you'll see that I can actually manipulate the joints, each individual joint here. But let's say I want to just do a gross motor movement. I just want her entire body to move left or move right, as if she was floating. So I'm going to click up Move here, and now click on sorry, here we go, one shots. So underneath Najee, underneath one shots and procedures, I can have her move left. So if I have her move left, she's going to move right from our perspective. Because remember, the move, turn, all of this will always be from the object perspective. So if I have her move left, I'm going to have her move left 1 meter. Okay, and she moves to her left 1 meter. So that's one way we can do that there. I'll show you. That's when we just want to manipulate and see what it looks like in the screen. If we wanted her to do multiple movements, we would switch back to the edit code, and I'll show you that in a second. But I just want to show you now how to then manipulate the specific joints. If we go back to classes here, you'll see that they're nice and organized into different classes. So the biped class, flyer class, prop classes. If I click on Najee and I go down to her object here, I can get real specific. So for example, if I go to neck, head, mouth, left eye, right eye, I'm going to start with her right eye. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in a little. And I want her to look to her left. So I've got hold of her eye, and now I can just manipulate that eye left and forward. I may have to just change my view here a little bit. Okay, yes, so I can now manipulate that eye. I just need to get just a little closer. There we go. So I can now, using that white arrow, I can now move her left and right. So I'm going to have her look to her left. Then I'm going to click right eye. Oops, sorry, I was just on the right eye. Click left eye. And I'm just going to have her look to her left there. Okay, so now she's looking to her left. So that's just one real quick introduction to joints. Obviously, you can get a lot more specific and have arms, wrists, even right down to individual fingers move. So it's a lot more intricate and detailed than Scratch, where in Scratch you would just adjust costumes and have, you know, our wings flap up and down or them dance back and forth on the spot. I'm going to click now prop classes, and I'm going to actually I'm going to search for it just so it won't take me as much time. So I'm going to search for something called the treasure chest. Okay, and now with objects like Najee and our long neck snail, we can get really specific with their joints when we're working with things like inanimate objects, like a treasure chest, for example. We don't have quite so many options, but we can still manipulate here. So I'm going to click the treasure chest, and I get two options: the bottom, so meaning the whole chest itself, or the lid. So I'm going to click the lid. Here I'm going to go to my procedures, and I can turn that lid backwards. And let's try it going backwards. There. So it looks like that. I'm going to close it again, and now we're going to move into the editor screen. There we go. We're going to move into the edit code screen, so now we can get a little more specific with this. So in the edit code, I'm still going to have my 3 panels, but here I'm going to have my procedures instead of my classes. So here I'm going to click, I'm going to do the turn again. So I'm going to move treasure chest turn backwards 25. Okay, and then if I want it to close all the way again, because it's going to be stuck in that backwards 25, so I have to counteract for that. So if I want it to go from the backwards position, then I'm going to have to move it forward by 0.5. And now I can test that out. And oops, I made a mistake. Sorry, I was wrong. Just go back by 25. And it opens and closes. Yeah, opens and closes. I could try watch it again. Perfect. So that's a real basic intro into choosing your classes, working with objects, specifically with joints and subparts, and then you also have a basic overview of the Alice interface. So what I would encourage you to do now is practice with your camera views, go through the different classes, select different objects, practice moving and resizing your objects, practice moving your objects' joints, and practice moving objects like a treasure chest and their subparts. So play around with this, take your time. You want to get a handle on the movement and the interface so that when we get into the more tricky stuff later, this basic stuff will be covered. Play around, and if you find that you feel comfortable with this, you can go ahead and try one of the YouTube Alice activities that I've put on the bottom of our Alice web page. Thanks, ladies. I hope you enjoy this. And again, I'm sorry I can't be there today because I'm sick, but I hope you enjoyed my first screencast.